A while back, we spent about 4 months travelling in a van across the UK and Europe. Whilst the best way to stay fit and strong for climbing when you're travelling is to climb, there are times when this is not possible. For example, the weather may not be great, or the purpose of your travel may be something different, or, like me, you may have had a finger injury that prevents you from climbing. Here are my top tips of how I stayed fit on the road. The key things to consider are you doing any strength training at home, or do you predominantly just climb? What is your goal and what kind of climbing do you enjoy? And how much space do you have for equipment? I think there are a few very specific exercises that all climbers can do, regardless of goals, like fingerboarding, pull-ups, core, and some power. But mostly, you need to think about what you personally need. Reflect on your climbing style, your goals, and what you want to maintain during your time away. My workouts at home are a mixture of climbing-specific exercises and also general strength training just for health and well-being. I love exercises like single-legged squats, which may not be directly beneficial for climbing unless you're climbing lots and lots of slabs, but are important for overall fitness, so that is important for me. I try to replicate my workout routine at home using lightweight equipment. I had to be really resourceful, but actually I find it really fun to experiment with different ways to do some of my favorite exercises. For instance, I always do shoulder press and rows, and I found ways to do them with resistance bands or TRX, even if it wasn't as measurable as using weights. My goal was to keep my strength to climb roofs, which is probably my favorite type of climbing at the moment, so all of my workouts were geared to that. If you love climbing slabs, this will look different for you. My training protocol focused heavily on core, some posterior chain, pushing exercises, and general full body strength, and I feel that I did not lose that much strength. When I returned to climbing, my body felt just as strong, and I had managed to do my hardest problem yet, so it did work for me. In terms of equipment, the number one item I recommend is a fingerboard. I have a tiny portable fingerboard that I use for rehab and warm-up, but it is also really good for keeping your fingers strong. It is important not to go long periods without training your fingers, as this can lead to injuries when you return to climbing. Your fingers need to be engaged regularly, and if you take a break, you may find yourself at risk of injury when you try to pull hard again. My portable fingerboard is compact and easy to carry. You can buy double ones, but I have a single one which works well. You can use it with resistance bands to strengthen your fingers or add weights. If you're traveling in a van, you won't be able to take a lot of weights with you, but you can get creative. For instance, I have hung water bottles on mine to add some weight. I find training mono hangs works well. For me, around 7 kilos was sufficient, and also I wasn't allowed to take any more, whereas I'd need 30 to 40 kilos to train all of my fingers at one time. The workout takes longer, but you will need much less weight. No matter what kind of climbing you like, finger strength is the number one thing, so I would prioritize this over everything else. The second item I recommend is a TRX. It's so useful for climbing and can be easily attached anywhere, such as to the van or trees when you're outside, and it's super portable. My favorite exercises focus on core stability, and you can also perform T's, Y's and I's, which mimic climbing really well. One exercise I do as well is called roll-off. It's super effective as it trains core and posterior chain. I got this from one of the climbing books. I'll put the link in the description below. Not essential but useful for me were parallettes. I took them with me and I used them for some core exercises on the TRX and for push-ups as they're easy on my wrists. Pushing exercises are great for injury prevention as they are antagonist exercises, so basically working opposite muscles to your climbing ones. Climbers often have quite weak tricep, including myself, and I think for me, I always feel so much better when I incorporate pushing exercises into my routine. Especially if you can't climb at all, this is a great time to focus on building strength in these muscles. Push-ups are also very good to help you with mantles. Another essential item is resistance bands. I brought a thin one for rehabilitation and warming up, but I also experimented with thicker bands. I used them for shoulder presses, rows, and various leg exercises. Rows are another great exercise for climbing, especially transferable on steep board. Doing face pulls with bands is also really useful for climbing, I find. You can also do them on the TRX, and yeah, they're brilliant. There are countless ways to utilize resistant bands. They're so portable and light, it is definitely worth backing them. I also took a yoga mat for stretching and heavily worked on flexibility. When traveling, especially in warmer locations, you can do plenty of stretching and yoga outside, which is lovely, and I feel like most climbers could do with extra flexibility, including myself. Especially if you prefer slab climbing, flexibility training is important, making yoga mat a much needed tool. I also used it for some floor-based core exercises. I have a lightweight portable travel one, and sometimes I did need an extra padding for my back, but otherwise it worked really well. Probably the most useful and transferable exercise is pull-ups, and it requires hardly any equipment. You can either do normal pull-ups or wide or power pull-ups, and if you can't do one, just attach a resistant band to help you. If you get access to a bar, doing core like windshield wipers and leg raises are also very good, especially for steeper problems. Just one more thing about motivation. I don't want you to think that it came really easy for me. I had to try really hard to stay motivated. When you go to a climbing wall or you're outside of the crag, motivation often comes naturally. However, I had to consciously think about my goals to motivate myself to do workouts in random car parks and often work out without much psych. I just got it done. I reminded myself that my future self would thank me for completing these workouts. I don't know if it's possible to actually get stronger for climbing without climbing, but what you can do is to minimize losing any hard-earned gains.